They called me unmarriageable, and after 12 rejections in 4 years, I started to believe them. My name is Elelena Whitmore. I am 22 years old, and my legs have been useless since I was 8. The result of a riding accident that broke my spine and left me dependent on a wheelchair my father commissioned from a craftsman in Richmond. But it wasn't the wheelchair that made me unmarriageable in Virginia society. It was what the wheelchair represented. Damaged goods, a burden. A woman who couldn't fulfill the most basic expectation of Southern womanhood, standing beside her husband at social functions, bearing children without complications, managing a household on her feet. 12 men, 12 proposals my father arranged, 12 rejections that grew progressively more brutal as my reputation as the crippled Whitmore girl spread. But this story isn't about my disability. It's about how my father's desperate solution, giving me to an enslaved man called the Brute, became the greatest love story I would ever know. Let me take you back to March of 1856, to the moment my father made a decision that would change 3 lives forever. Whitmore Estate sits in the Piedmont region of Virginia, 20 miles west of Charlottesville, where rolling hills meet dense forests and tobacco fields stretch toward the Blue Ridge Mountains. 5,000 acres of prime farmland, 200 enslaved people, and a house my grandfather built in 1790. I was born here in 1834, the only child of Colonel Richard Whitmore and his wife Catherine. My mother died 3 days after my birth, leaving my father with an infant daughter and no interest in remarrying. Then came the riding accident. I was 8 years old. The horse spooked, I fell, and I heard my spine crack. The doctors delivered their verdict. The damage was permanent. My father commissioned the finest wheelchair available and adapted our home, but he couldn't adapt Virginia society. By age 18, my father began his campaign to find me a husband. The first proposal came from Thomas Aldrich. I watched his eyes travel from my face to the wheelchair and then to the floor. He declined. The second came from James Morrison, a widower with children. He needed a mother who could manage them physically. The third, fourth, and fifth proposals came, each with its own flavor of cruelty. A rumor spread that I couldn't bear children, and suddenly I wasn't just disabled, I was also infertile. By 1855, my father's attempts had become desperate. He approached men from other states, offered increasingly generous dowries. The answer was always no. After the 12th rejection, I found my father in his study, staring at the wall, a glass of bourbon in his hand. "I've arranged 12 proposals in 4 years, he said, his voice flat and defeated. "Every single man has declined. You're not worth marrying." "Then I won't marry," I said. "I'll stay here. I'll help you manage. I'm 55 years old. I could die tomorrow. And when I do, what happens to you? Our male relatives will inherit this estate. Do you think your cousin Robert will let you stay? He'll sell this place and give you some pittance to live on, dependent on his charity. Then leave me the estate in your will." "I can't. Virginia law doesn't allow it. Women can't inherit property independently, especially not unmarried women, and especially not." He gestured at my wheelchair, unable to finish. 4 weeks later, my father called me to his study and told me about his solution. A solution so radical, so shocking, I was certain I'd misheard him. "I'm giving you to Josiah," he said. "He'll be your husband." Josiah, the blacksmith, the enslaved blacksmith. "I'm completely serious. Elelena, no white man will marry you. That's the reality we face. But you need protection. You need someone strong enough to carry you, capable enough to manage physical tasks you can't do, loyal enough to care for you when I'm gone. Josiah is the strongest man on this estate. He's intelligent, healthy, and by all accounts, gentle despite his size. He'll protect you, and he won't abandon you because he's bound to you by law." The logic was horrifying. "You're treating me like property. Giving me to a slave as if I'm furniture. I'm ensuring you survive. Society has already condemned you. 12 men looked at you and decided you weren't worth marrying. So I'm done caring what society thinks." He wanted me to marry, or whatever passed for marriage when one party was enslaved. A man I'd barely spoken to, a man society called property, a man known as the Brute because of his immense size. "Can I meet him first?" I asked. "Actually talk to him?" "Of course. I'll arrange it tomorrow." They brought Josiah to the house the next morning, and my first thought was, "Dear God, he's impossibly large." I heard heavy footsteps in the hall. My father entered first, followed by a figure that had to duck to fit through the doorway. Josiah was 7 feet tall if he was an inch, with shoulders that barely cleared the doorframe's width. He weighed at least 300 pounds, all of it muscle. His hands were enormous, scarred from forge burns. He stood with his head slightly bowed. "Josiah," my father said, "this is my daughter, Elelena." "Yes, sir," Josiah said, his voice surprisingly soft and deep. "Elelena," I've explained the situation to Josiah. He understands that he'll be responsible for your care and protection. My father then left us alone. Silence stretched between us. "Would you like to sit?" I gestured to a chair. He looked at the delicate piece with embroidered cushions, then at his frame. "I don't think that chair would hold me, miss." "The sofa, then." He sat carefully on the edge of the sofa, which creaked under his weight. Even sitting, he was taller than most standing men. "Are you afraid of me, miss?" he asked quietly. "Should I be?" "No, miss. I would never hurt you. I swear that. They call you the brute." He flinched. "Yes, miss. Because of my size. Because I look frightening. But I'm not brutal. I've never hurt anyone. Not on purpose. But you could. If you wanted to. I could." He met my eyes. "But I wouldn't. Not you. Not anyone who didn't deserve it." There was a gentleness in his eyes that didn't match his appearance. "Josiah, I want to be honest with you," I said. "I don't want this any more than you probably do. My father is arranging this because he's desperate and I'm unmarriageable. But if we're going to do this, I need to know. Are you dangerous?" "No, miss." "Are you cruel?" "No, miss." "Are you going to hurt me?" "Never, miss. I promise on everything I hold sacred, I will never hurt you." The earnestness in his voice was undeniable. "Then I have another question," I said. "Can you read?" The question surprised him. A flash of fear crossed his face. Reading was illegal for enslaved people in Virginia. Finally, he said quietly, "Yes, miss, I can read. I taught myself. I know it's not allowed, but I couldn't stop myself. Books are their doorways. What do you read?" "Whatever I can find. Old newspapers mostly. Sometimes books I borrow." I read slowly. I didn't learn properly, but I read. "Have you read Shakespeare?" He looked startled again. "Yes, miss. There's an old copy in the library that no one ever touches. I've read it at night when everyone's asleep." "Which plays?" "Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, The Tempest." His voice gained enthusiasm despite himself. "The Tempest is my favorite. The idea of Prospero controlling the island with magic, of Ariel wanting freedom, of Caliban being treated as a monster, but maybe being more human than anyone." He stopped abruptly, as if remembering where he was. "Sorry, miss." In that moment, staring at the enormous, gentle man who loved Shakespeare, the world my father had built, and the desperate, impossible plan he had devised, suddenly felt different. It felt like the beginning of a story, not the end of one.